What if the life that you've been chasing isn't actually the life that is going to fulfill you? In this video, I'm going to show you how to break free from societal expectations, especially if you're somebody over the age of 40. So that way you can be led to understand real happiness, peace, and most importantly, purpose. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD and ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, which is the study of spirituality. I am also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious, both available on Amazon and Audible. Now, society has this amazing way of laying down what is expected of you, right? And these expectations can be a trap for most of us. And it's a trap that most of us actually find ourselves in at some point in life. Usually, it is around the time where you hit maybe middle age, 40s, 50s, and up. Now, what tends to happen to us when we realize that we were in the trap of expectations, societal expectations, we usually will experience things like anger, frustration. We will wonder why nobody told us. And we will even have a sense of regret because we may feel that the previous years of life were essentially a waste of time and that we cannot get it back. But that's not the case. So I really want you, if you are at that moment in your life, I really want you to understand that you have so much more life to live and to apply what it is you are now learning and understanding. But what's important, though, is to recognize that the trap of these societal expectations is one that everybody falls into. So a lot of times you are fed a story, an agenda, a belief system that goes in line with, of course, the person who gave you that belief system, right? That's their own personal beliefs as well. That's something that they follow suit to and they believe works for them because they were told it works for them, right? They were told it was going to work for them, just like you were told it's going to work for you. But at some point, you reach a phase of awakening. You reach a phase of understanding your, individuality. You reach a phase of recognizing, authenticity, what really resonates with you, right? And this is part of the journey, the spiritual journey, is coming into that state of recognition, that state of realization, and it's important to not blame the person who passed down those expectations and those, societal norms or stigmas or belief systems. It's not their fault. Honestly, they did the best they could with what they had. So it's no need to point fingers at, your parents, grandparents, your siblings. It's not their fault. Okay. We are all doing the best we can with what we have. Now, the real thing, the real, challenge, the real power is understanding that from here on out, it's all on you. You have to take full responsibility now and simply take all the programs that were given to you or the beliefs that you understand don't no longer serve you, and then reprogram them and then change those beliefs, you see, because pointing fingers at society, pointing fingers at your mom, your dad, your auntie, that is not going to do anything for you. That is not going to progress you along the path of true fulfillment and actually creating the life that you truly, truly desire. So we have to let that go. That's a big part of the lesson of forgiveness. It's not about, the trauma that you went through and saying that they get excused from it. It's simply about taking ownership from the here on and now, right? And what to do with that, right? Taking your power at this present moment. So let's get into really unpacking societal expectations and how they influenced you and how now you are breaking free from that influence. You have to understand that your idea or once your ideas of success, career, marriage, kids were usually something that was passed down to you, something that you really probably took real authentic time to consider from a place of what really resonates with you, what really makes sense to you, what really feels at home for you. You know, you are usually, we walk into this life guided, being pushed along a particular path. And though we are at a space where we don't feel fully connected with this path, right? You know, when you're in middle school, junior high school, when you're in high school, you're being molded and pushed and told that this is what you have to do next. Okay. Go to college. This is what you have to do next. After college, find a partner, get married, have the kids, buy a house. You know, these are the things you have to do next. Get a career, right? A long, lifelong lasting career, work for a company. Even though these things are starting to dissolve, but we still recognize them in our society as a quote unquote norm. And so you have to come into a space of continuing the momentum of this awakening, right? That's dissolving these belief systems, but also recognize for yourself that, yes, okay, these things are no longer the norm with society. You have to first focus on what is your norm, basically what allows you to feel comfortable, feel safe, feel excited, feel passion, when it comes to life and living, to achieve and sustain a sense of fulfillment in your life. You have to recognize the separation between your unique and individual desires versus society, because you are on a unique individual spiritual path that is grounded in the intention and the purpose of authenticity, really knowing and understanding who you are. Society isn't really on the same path as you. So society will tend to look opposite of that which you truly desire, that is going to connect with you. And so as society is creating this mold, because most of society is scared to be themselves. Most of the people in society are scared at the idea of being alone, of being an individual, because they think that they're going to be cast out, they're going to be shunned, they're going to be embarrassed, they're going to be told that they're weirdos, or, that they are oddballs or crazy. You see, that is the norm of society. Now, when people are chosen and they're on the path of awakening, such as you are, then you start to question those norms, and you start to ask yourself questions as to what it is that you want. You really should allow yourself to focus on your wants, because most times when we take on the spiritual journey, we go in phases, right? You don't just go from a place of being asleep and being unconscious to simply having this grand awakening where everything just simply makes sense. There are phases, right? Just like the seasons has phases, there are phases within yourself when it comes to your awakening in your summer, right? You really want to understand that, hey, it is more important to focus on your desires and what you want rather than villainize what you don't want, and focusing on what you don't want, or focusing on the opposing, quote unquote, opposing force, right? So a lot of people in the spiritual community, they're constantly focusing on the negativity of society. Society is this, the world is this, and they don't want you to do this, and they are preventing you from awakening, and they don't want you to be your true self, and they don't want you to be happy. Please. Okay, if you have to go through that path, do so mindfully, recognizing that that's not really going to help you. This is simply, it's just the same as pointing your fingers at your parents or your guardian, whoever passed down that belief system that you recognize no longer serves you. The same thing applies to society. Okay. Now, it isn't your job to villainize and judge society. That's still wasted energy, wasted effort. Your main focus, probably your only focus, should be on what it is that you desire, focusing on coming into that understanding and not being distracted by anything other than that. Focusing on your desires, your connection with life, with energy, with love, with purpose. That is where you must focus. If you focus there, you will achieve that. Okay. Make everything intentional, directed toward that focus. You will understand and you will absolutely create that fulfillment for yourself. Now, as we talk about expectation, expectation comes in many forms during different times of our lives. When we are children, not much of an expectation, I don't think. Maybe we expect food, right? We expect maybe love from our parents, affection, that kind of love, but as we grow up, our idea of expectation changes and it becomes something very urgent, right? So think about when you're in high school, you have an expectation of the boy, the girl, right? The relationships. You have an expectation of your connection with your parents and them allowing you to do certain things and not do certain things. It's a little bit of a, chaotic moment during those high school years, right? And then you carry what you think works as far as expectations into, college life, into those early and later 20s, where you have an expectation of what a relationship is supposed to look like, what love is supposed to look like. We go through relationships with people and then we're learning this idea of what we identify as love and expressing love is completely different from everybody else's idea of expressing and receiving love. You see, you may have heard or you may have said it. If you love me, you would do this, right? Well, that is a prime example of what I'm talking about. We think that love equates to a particular action, goal, objective, or physical thing, when in fact, the best relationships are the ones where you come to an understanding, you communicate what love looks like to me, what love looks like to you, and then try to understand compatibility and alignment within that. You see, and if you don't, then what you need to expect is some turmoil in that relationship, because then there's going to be a disconnect. Your expectation is going to clash with their expectation. You see, but if you come into, say, a relationship with minimal expectation, yes, standards, but minimal expectations as to how they're supposed to communicate, what exactly they're supposed to say, what exactly is supposed to be done during this time and not this time. If you minimize those things and you just simply communicate as things are happening from a sense of, your feelings and desires, maybe what you would like to see or which really didn't resonate with you, and you communicate that to each other from a place of love and understanding, then things will probably go in a very loving, compassionate way, even if that means that you find that you both don't, align and you don't resonate with one another, right? Then you experience what's called that conscious breakup, but ultimately at the ages of say 30, 40, and 50 and up, you hit, these points of where you have to recognize that these expectations that you have, that you receive from society, isn't aligning with who you are, and because you still feel like there's something missing. Okay. And then that tends to fuel emotions like stress, comparison, and, things like self-doubt, feeling inadequate, feeling maybe moments of jealousy and envy toward other people. And then you are looking at yourself like, what is going on? Why am I feeling this? I should be at a place where I have it figured out. The trick is we don't ever truly figure it out. The process of life is figuring it out. So never feel like at one point in your life, you're going to have it all figured out. Yeah. Some people are very simple in their approach to life, and they're okay with that. So they can just simply say, okay, I want to find a nice, kind partner. I want to get a nice place to live. I want to work at a company create a pension, save up my money, retire, and just simply chill. Some people are just completely simple and they're fine with that. Don't look at them though as the model for you, because that may not be your path. That may not be the blueprint, right, for you. Your blueprint may be different. You may want more exciting, exotic experiences and things, right? You may be more eclectic in nature, and you should and you must honor that. Not should, you must honor that, you know? So be mindful about comparison. Be mindful about letting the stress of these societal expectations stress you out, like bills, right? Bills, or trying to have the best looking car, or trying to be the best dressed person in the world, right? Like those things don't matter. They don't matter at all. Yeah, okay, have a reliable car. If car is your required medium of transportation, great. You know, best dressed? No, just look clean, maintenance, learn proper hygiene, groom yourself well. That's all you need. People will vibe with you just on that. So you don't need to look a certain way. You just need to be at a place where you are comfortable and confident with yourself. You see? So don't put those expectations on yourself, and recognize them. Look at them, because what happens is all of those expectations comes with a toll. Okay. And that toll is essentially you losing yourself. That toll is basically resulting in burnout because you're trying to keep up with an idea that really isn't yours, right? It's an idea that really isn't anybody's. It's a collection of, you know, ideas, collection of theories, a collection of negative concepts that have become an entity that society is somewhat projecting unconsciously onto everybody. So you have to be willing to break free in order for you to not experience the toll, right? The weight of these expectations, the burnout, the anxiety, feeling a sense of emptiness. So you have to really be mindful and intentionally set yourself up to break free from this. And you break free from these trap of expectations by choosing authenticity. What does that mean? It means truly being your truest self and expressing that outward without any fear or concern about what other people think. Okay. It's about not giving a damn, basically. Being yourself. Yes. You want to be compassionate. You want to understand that these are other people that you're connecting and communicating with. So you want to speak with them the same way you will want to be speaking to. You want to deal with them, love them the same way you want to be dealt with and loved as well. Remember, they are reflections of you. So how you treat another person is essentially how you're treating yourself. But you want to be authentic with your ideas, with your feelings, with your thoughts, with your opinions. If somebody comes to you and they ask you if you like something of theirs, if they have music that they play, right? And they say, hey, do you like this? If you don't like it, it's okay to say you don't like it. If they come to you and say, oh, this is a book that I wrote, do you like it? You can honestly and be authentic and say, you know what? This is just not my kind of read. This is not something that really connects with me because this is just not my genre. That is being compassionate, communicating to them your point of view in a way that simply would relieve them of feeling like maybe they just suck at writing, right? But you have to understand you can balance authenticity with honesty. One doesn't have to be chosen over the other. So when it comes to authenticity, you have to learn to redefine success, right? And I wouldn't even say it goes beyond redefining. It's really coming to your own definition. It's really recognizing that success to you is completely different than success for me. You have to go down that path and recognize that. You have to go through the fire, through the flame, and be forged into who you are. You have to recognize that, listen, in order for you to be happy, you have to go through the work of laying down the path. of recognizing what happiness is to you, of getting glimpses of happiness as you do particular things, and then letting that lead you to more of that thing or other things that are similar to it to broaden this happiness, broaden this idea of understanding of success. Okay. So you shift from chasing status to creating a life based on passion, peace, and alignment. That is the key. Disregard everything else that everybody else is doing, you know? And if you are, intrigued by what somebody else is doing, that's fine. But don't think that, okay, they did this and they are happy or they appear to be happy, therefore I need to do it as well. The most important thing to understand with all of this, with transversing, with ascending beyond expectation, is recognizing the power of self-acceptance. Oftentimes, the challenge with expectations, the reason why we have to deal with them and the reason why we get stuck in this trap of societal expectations is because we haven't come into self-acceptance. You see, when we were children, when we were teenagers, we were still trying to figure out who we were. And because we were not clear as to who we were, then these expectations were able to basically sink into our subconscious and become part of our, dynamic. And so now that we've come into a place of recognizing ourselves, seeing ourselves, having a grasp of who you really are, then you recognize that who you really are doesn't connect with these ideas that you've been given, these expectations from society. And so now you have to cultivate accepting oneself as the primary goal, the primary focal point. When you recognize that power in accepting yourself, then that will grow into shedding off these expectations, these societal expectations, and recognizing, wait a minute, these things don't mean anything to me. It is myself, and really owning who I am that will extend itself out to exploring things that really, really connect with who you are. Okay. So you have to embrace your truth and, your uniqueness, right? Without even questioning it, without any apologies about how special and how unique you are. Okay. You have to recognize you're not behind. Okay. Because a lot of times we think in terms of, well, I'm far behind and I have to catch up. Or we think, oh, I'm too old to really get into my unique, authentic self. The reason we say that is because even the idea of getting into our unique, authentic self, you get more energized, you feel more excited about life, you almost feel like a teenager again because life truly begins started. And so that excitement allows you to feel like, wait a minute, I'm feeling young. But because we have those belief systems as to what 40 looks like, what 50 looks like, what 60 looks like, that clashes because then it's like, wait a minute, I'm too old to feel this way, And then we start to pull back. We start to be at odds with ourselves. So I don't want you to feel like, you know what, I'm too old to be feeling this way. I'm too old to want to try something new, like skating, like skateboarding, like mountain climbing. Like you start thinking all these things, these possibilities, but then that subconscious programming from the societal expectations that were given to you starts to tell you you shouldn't do that. You can't do that. This is why I say, do not be caught up in feeling like you're behind, right? Because you're not behind. The truth is you are becoming. You are becoming your true self. So be and allow for that becoming. You see, self-care is very important and is more important than, say, sacrifice, because what we're doing is, as we adapt and take on these societal expectations, and we may even fight with ourselves to hold on to these expectations because many of us don't want to be wrong. We don't want to feel like we've wasted 30, 40 years of our lives. It wasn't a waste. This is part of the learning process. Sometimes you have to go through things over the course of time to have a moment where you recognize, oh, that was something that I needed to go through in order to wake up at this very moment. And so you have to understand that the self-care idea over sacrifice is very important because we tend to feel like we have to give up, right? We have to give up ourselves because we are giving up this false narrative. Do not identify so much with these expectations and these false narratives. If you are upset, if you are frustrated, if you are angry, that is a sign that you are on the wrong path. So you have to acknowledge that, okay, you're not willing to sacrifice your most authentic self, okay, in order for you to not be wrong. It's okay to admit when you're wrong. It's okay to say, you know what, I could have done this a better way. That is, again, part of the learning process. So you receive this opportunity that there needs to be a shift that happens. See these negative emotions, right, as a blessing to wake you up. Okay. So that way you let go of wanting to grasp onto this idea of being right. And you no longer sacrifice your authentic true self and your true happiness, but you put self-care before that. Okay. You make something like well-being a non-negotiable. Your energy, your joy, your health matters more than anything else. It matters more than somebody else's approval or society or your family saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should do what we've been telling you to do. Meanwhile, your family may be the definition of miserable because they've been doing what they know to do. Whereas you're getting a glimpse that you can go beyond that, that there is something else, that there's something more that you need to be doing. And you must honor and follow that. So don't sacrifice yourself, push forward from a place of recognizing the freedom of conscious choice, the freedom of actually breaking out of the framework of the cage of society and what society says we all should be doing. You'll start to get glimpses of other people breaking free of these societal norms. And usually, right, you'll look at them and you'll be like, oh, they're crazy. And then you'll push it away. What I want to invite you to do is to look at it from a place of curiosity. Wow, they're doing this thing. Why are they doing this thing? How are they doing this thing? That may spark your interest, maybe not in that particular thing, but in something else. It will start to carry you in the direction of recognizing your own purpose and what you're supposed to be doing. So you have to essentially start, creating your own story rather than accepting the story that society or your family or your parents has given you. You start reclaiming your own story. Okay. You're not obligated to live a life based on others' expectation, right? Based on what others expect. That is not what you're obligated to do. And I know, as children, right, as a son or a daughter, that is kind of how you're brought up. That's kind of like what happens, right? You do what your parents tell you to do, and that's coming from a place of safety, right? And then eventually that carries over into emotional things and life goals and lifestyle. When in fact, that is when you actually supposed to, take control, and you're actually supposed to dictate what it is you want for your life, what it is that you want in general. As long as you are being safe, then, you can step out of the coverage, out of the protection of, say, family, parents, or what have you. You claim your power to rewrite your path, and you have to do that now. You couldn't do that then, but now you have that power to do so. So you have to start like resetting your priorities, right? As what you really truly desire now, distinguishing what I often say is distinguishing the desire from the want, like many of us want $1 million. Okay, why do you want $1 million? What are you going to do with $1 million? The $1 million represents the want. It's very superficial. But what do you want with that $1 million? Do you feel like you're going to be free? Do you feel like you're going to have more, agency, autonomy, that you could do whatever you want with $1 million, then really that's what you want, right? You want that lifestyle. If you're going to invest $1 million, if you're going to build a business with $1 million, then okay, then you really want to build a business. Then you really want to invest. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the difference between what I want and what I desire? And then you start to really create a path focused on what you desire, because people get the $1 million, but they don't know what they want to do with it. And therefore the $1 million just kind of goes away. They spend it. It's a waste. But if you know what you truly desire, then you can move forward and continuing to create that desire, and is more fulfilling and creates more happiness and joy for you. So resetting the priorities is asking yourself, okay, what it is that I really desire, and then give yourself permission, like to move, to pivot, to change, right? Because you're probably on a trajectory where you're just doing the normal societal things, but you're not feeling good. You're not feeling happy. You're not feeling excited. You're feeling miserable. You're feeling maybe a little bit depressed. You're feeling maybe bored with life. Well, take it this time, and you have permission, give yourself permission to change. As a adult, as a human being, as an infinite being, you most certainly can change your mind. Change what you're doing now, and understand that this new path, this new direction is far more exciting, fulfilling, and is going to bring you the joy that you absolutely deserve. Okay? So that's going to help to support you in this whole thing of just dissolving all these expectations. Flexibility is very important in sense of like, stay open to new experiences, right? Stay open to new possibilities in your relationships, new ways of living, and even reinventing yourself in terms of spirituality. If you have a particular practice, spiritual practice, understand that, listen, your spirituality is your spirituality. Your spiritual journey will not ever be taken away from you. That's the beauty of this whole thing. You can have a spiritual direction, right? Where maybe you are religious. Maybe you are somebody who follows New Thought movement, just focused on mastering meditation, right? You're a yogi, you're into yoga. You can explore and try other things. It will not take away from you being a yogi, from you being a Christian, from you being, somebody who meditates, right? A meditator, a master meditator. It doesn't take away from that. It will always add to it, So don't think in terms of you having to put yourself in a box. That box will expand as you expand. You are the box. So don't feel like you're stuck in one place, but that you can continue to evolve and go beyond. Okay. So living authentically means like there's no end point. You just simply grow. You just simply expand. Just like I said, you are the box. As you grow, the box will continue to grow and expand. So, let go of, being stuck, being rigid. This is only how you do it, and this is the only way to do it. Recognize that letting go is a continuous process. So as you let go of these expectations and you take on new understanding as to yourself as an infinite being, you recognize that as an infinite being, you cannot be restrained. You cannot be stuck. Okay. When you acknowledge these expectations, you subconsciously and unconsciously try to keep yourself stuck there. This is why you experience things like, suffering, depression, anxiety, anger, bitterness, remorse, regret, because you are confining your essence. Your essence is of light. You're supposed to expand and continue expanding. When you try to encapsulate that, then it gets agitated until finally it explodes. You know, freedom evolves as you evolve. So when you think about and understand that, okay, as you evolve into recognizing who you are, then your freedom to express yourself, to experience whatever you desire to experience, will also evolve. Okay. A very important thing is to celebrate as you go. Like, honor every step that you take toward living on your own terms. Don't get caught up into being trapped or punishing yourself, because a lot of people do that as well. They punish themselves for being curious and trying new things, you know? But understand that it's important to acknowledge yourself for the small wins of expansion, because, small wins, they equal big shifts, and that's what we want. We want big shifts. So if you decide, you know what, I want to read an article on this, or I want to look at a video about this, give yourself props for that. Acknowledge that, you know. Purpose is one of those things that we cannot avoid. This is what grounds us on this earth, and what actually is the point, is to find purpose and then to pursue that purpose, to achieve that purpose. You know, purpose is more important than pressure. We think that because we don't know our purpose at the moment, that we are supposed to follow the pressure of society. We're supposed to just say, okay, since I don't know what I'm doing, where I'm going, how I'm doing it, then I'm going to just simply receive what I'm told. I understand that concept. I understand why you would do that. But you must understand that at some point, which is currently right now, you must break free of that pressure. Because though that pressure has gotten you to this point, in order for you to move forward in a place that creates the fulfillment and happiness that you want, you have to follow purpose. And even if you don't know what your purpose is to find your purpose. So you have to just keep that as the main, direction, the North Star of your compass. You have to just keep focusing on purpose, not not the pressure of society, So make sure you align your choices with meaning, not metrics, with love and not materialistic things. That's how you build a life that feels like you. You are doing things because you enjoy doing them. You love doing them. That's what's going to bring the most fulfillment, happiness, and success your way. And this is basically what you're going to do to dissolve and get rid of all the expectations that society has put on you, has programmed within you. When you start doing that, you're going to feel more free. You're going to feel more energetic, more happy. And yeah, there are going to be moments where those things try to nudge themselves in your mind. They're going to whisper to you, the ego's going to say, but hey, this is what we need to do to be normal. And eventually, though, consciousness will take over as long as you stay aligned in this journey. So stay focused on being authentic. Stay focused on living a authentic life that aligns with who you know yourself to be. And when you continue on that mindset, then who you're meant to be, your true self, will actually eventually materialize in the present moment. You see? So understand that you're not too late, okay? And you're not too old, that you're right. You're right on time, right? You're right on time to become the most powerful version of yourself. So stick with it, keep going, because this is what we're here to do. We're here to keep going and keep expanding. So thank you so much for this video, for watching. Thank you so much for taking your time out to listen. Feel free, go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook, The Power Within. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.